In this video, we're going to show you how to renovate your shower plumbing from copper to PEX. So if you're like most people, you're in a home that's got a bathroom that needs to be renovated and you've got it all ripped apart and you run into this, copper plumbing. Now you may not be the best plumber in the world, but if you can learn how to make one simple solder joint, you can convert from copper to using PEX, and then you can just use a crimper to install all your plumbing through the rest of the shower. This will enable any average homeowner to be able to add jets and rain showers and all kinds of fun features. And you can even run your plumbing around the nooks that you want to build on your walls, but you need a couple of simple tricks, and here they are. First, you're going to need a copper cutting tube. This is a really simple little tool. Pick it up at the hardware store, about 15 bucks. And copper is a really soft metal. Actually, I'm going to go a little bit lower, so when I'm torching, I'm well away from the wood. Copper is a really soft metal. You can actually just tighten that tube on. Look at this. And it starts cutting right through. And every time you make a turn around the pipe, you just turn it up a little bit more. They come in different sizes, so if you're in an unrestricted area, you can get one with a big handle. It makes it a little bit easier. But in this environment, just a quarter turn, and then just keep on running. It'll take about 6 or 7 times around, and then you'll be able to cut right through the pipe. Now, if you're good with a torch, there we go, we just broke through. You could always just heat up this joint and pop both of these at the same time. A lot of people might find that a little tricky. So this just kind of eliminates all of those problems. There we go. And we'll tighten that on and just work it around. You'll notice also that this control area is really low. Back in the day, this used to be standard to have it really low because the tub was used a lot more than the shower. Nowadays, people are using the shower almost exclusively. And the times that this functions, the tub is very rare, and so we're putting them up a lot higher, so it's a little more convenient for while you're having shower use. There we go. So now we're completely clear. All we have to do now is identify how they've got this mounted on. Looks like a couple of nails. This is a fancy little stiletto tool. It's like a little mini hammer, but it does so many wonderful little things for those hard to reach places. Now, in this situation, we're not going to try to save any of this plumbing, so you can be as aggressive as you like because we have drained the water. There we go. And then we'll just lift this up to loosen the nails and pry that right off. There we are. Now, important, don't throw this away. You're most likely going to want to save this copper to add for your tub spout. And that is a good piece of copper, so no sense throwing it in the garbage. Okay, so we got our hot and our cold. Traditionally, hot's on the left. If it's not, you're going to be in for a surprise. What I'm going to show you here is how to clean this, how to torch it, and then how to convert to PEX, or just put a brass cap on. And the reason you're going to learn both of these options is if you have options, it might save you a trip to run into the store. Now this is sandcloth, and it's funny because the last time we did a copper to PEX video, I used sandcloth. I called it sandcloth. It says sandcloth on the box, and people were giving me different opinions about why I was calling it sandcloth in the video in the comments section below. And it's because that's what it's called on the box, so that's what I call it. If you have a different trade name for it, that's fine. The goal here is to get it nice and clean. You can't torch on dirt. You have to make sure that your copper is copper in color before you try to torch anything. And you want to do about 1.5 inches. Don't try to just get cheap and clean around the top, because all it takes is one missed spot and you're going to have a leak. So here we are. Here is the fitting that we're going to use to convert from copper to PEX. Now, this is plumbing language. We talk male and female. Things that get receiving and things that go inside, right? It's the way it works. So this is the male version and this is the female version. The female version goes over top of the copper, okay, which is convenient. The male version is the same size as the copper, and so this would be convenient if you're on a joint or using a coupling. I just thought I'd throw that out there for you to see. But what we're using is the female version. And because the part of the plumbing we're doing right now is kind of mid-demo. We're just getting this all capped off so we can pull the tub out. I could also use just a regular plumbing cap, and I can cap my plumbing that way too. Okay, but since we're going to be converting to PEX for the long haul, what I'm going to do to save myself time for tomorrow is I'm just going to put 6 inches of PEX on there, put on a test cap, which is one of these little plastic caps here, and that'll be good for tonight. And then tomorrow we can just cut and add the fittings when we're ready to run the plumbing. Now, basically this comes already cleaned, comes from the factory, it's brass, it doesn't really tarnish, but what I like to do is scratch it up just a little bit so that I have somewhere for the solder to sit into, okay? So when I'm doing my torching, if you haven't done torching before, what I'm looking to do is I'm going to use this solder. Here we go. You heat up the joint where you want the solder to go to, which is up here, and you add the solder from the bottom, all right? So what you want to do is create a nice clean scratched up environment so the solder has somewhere to sit. And you're basically sealing it for the whole width of the joint. All right, so you end up sealing it about 50 times more than is necessary, and that is the goal, to get such a good clean joint that there's no risk of it ever leaking, and then you can sleep at night. See, when the fitting is hot enough, the solder will melt on the opposite side of the pipe at the lowest part. And now you know when it's going in, there we go, pushed in and it dripped out. I know that whole thing is full of solder now. I'm adding the heat to the top left, I'm adding solder for the bottom right. The heat goes up, so when it gets hot enough to melt solder in the bottom right, I know it's been sucked because I added the flux. And there we go, it's been sucked all the way to the top. And that's it. That soldering job is done. So I just ran to the car and got my PEX cutting tool. So I'm out of breath. It's too cold to be standing around in a t-shirt. I wanted to show you this. 2 different fittings you use to cap the end of the line. These are called test caps. They're made of plastic. And this is a brass cap. That's if you were going to have a line and it's going to end and you want to crimp that and not ever think about it again for the rest of your life. Not using that today. We will be using these. And they're wonderful. You just slide them on. Okay, get a couple of rings, slide those on and crimp it. And that's it. So we're going to just stick this on the line and then crimp it all up, okay? Now, we torched that only 2 minutes ago, but I'm not concerned about if it's too hot. This PEX handles a lot of heat. The way you do this is you would put this test cap on and it has a little stub on it, and you bring your ring right up to the end here, and that tells you that you're in the right place. Light on your crimpers and done. Okay, so you want your ring about 1/4 inch off the end of the pipe, snug to the brass fitting. Boom. And this might seem a little bit tedious and frustrating, but it is a lot quicker and a lot more flexible than doing soldering. All right, so we are back here now to finish our conversion from copper to PEX and install our shower valve. This is the typical shower tub system. It has hot and cold shutoffs, as well as it has integrated PEX adapters so that you can run PEX directly to this. And the tub line comes with a 3/4 inch PEX adapter, which solves all of the problems we've been experiencing in this industry, going to PEX and having dripping from the shower head when you do PEX to your tub. So, what we need to do here is really simple. It's just a matter of doing any of our copper work first so we can let everything cool down, and then we can just crimp everything together. So these systems come, the tap just threads off like this. Just be careful, this is all machined brass and it is sharp. You may want to wear gloves for this case. This is just the test cap with the ring on it. And there we go, that's our valve. So I'm going to suggest, since I'm going to go with the copper option for the bottom, I'm going to suggest that you take out the stops for the hot and the cold. Just pinch them together and slide that out. Okay, and just give her a tug. There we go, it's all one piece. Now the instructions that come with this do not tell you that it's required. However, experience says when you're using a soldering wet tool, if you have anything on that fixture that's made of rubber, you're probably best to get rid of it. There we go. Oh. And that is why we put the drain cover on. There we are. So now there's nothing left here but solid brass. Now as far as the height that you install your valve at, it's completely optional. In consulting with this particular client, she has grandchildren that she uses to bathe in this tub, so she needs to be able to access the water while she's bent over at the tub. So it's not as low as traditional for a tub, but it's high enough that you can reach it without having to bend over while you're having a shower. So it's kind of the best of both worlds here. So before we get started, don't forget rule number 1, turn off the water, drain the line. Just because you turn it off doesn't mean you're not going to have a mess. The lines are pressurized, so always drain the line first. So this valve is going to go on our center line, which is about here. If you're in a situation where you have more stud space, Pex is awesome. They have these wonderful little holders, and you can actually bend it around to go to a 90 without using a crimp. Okay? In our situation here, though, we don't have enough room to turn that. So I'm going to have to use an elbow, and since I'm using an elbow on the hot line, there's no sense using this on the cold because I'm only going to be able to have as much pressure as on the hot side anyway in a shower. So the easiest way to hook up your plumbing is to use a laser level. Get your laser level on the center line, and then just mark all of your lumber where the line is. Okay, all the way up to the shower head. And that's it. Now there's no more measuring involved. Done. Gotta own a laser level if you're renovating at home. Next thing is to rough in, just to measure all your components. We're going to temporarily screw this to the wall. Good to know in this system, there's 2 holes for screwing it and 2 holes for attaching the plate. The ones that you screw to the wall with this manufacturer don't have any threading in them, so they're easy to identify. I know some companies thread all the holes regardless. And it always drives you crazy. So we will put that there. And now for this, you're going to need a 1/2 inch coupling for the tub. I like to use one of these bad boys because I can attach it to the wall. It's a 90-degree elbow that comes with a mount on it. Now, the way you measure is you measure the gap and then add 1 inch. So you get a 1/2 inch for each fitting. So we're going to go 7, so I need to cut an 8-inch piece of pipe and measure my 8-inch with my thumb. Of course, this is a rough to it. If you're at all concerned, you can just take off a little bit for good luck. That's fine here. Okay. Leave that there for now. And you also want to cut at the same time about a 5-inch extension for the tub spout. Now the particular tub spout fixture that we have is a slip-on tub spout where the attachment happens near the wall. You really only need about 2 inches out of the wall. I just like to go a little overboard so that I'm guaranteed I'm not going to have any soldering on the pipe where I'm trying to slide it over the tub fixture later. Okay, because we're dealing with copper and we're dealing with our hands, we're going to have oil on the line. We just make sure we clean up the copper, all the ends, give them a good scratch with the sand cloth. Of course, use the fitting brush inside all of the fittings, give them all a good scratch. Including here. And you want to scratch up the valve as well. Before we continue, we just want to get all of our torch products sitting here handy, ready to roll. One of the best ways to do your soldering is to have your fixture mounted somewhere so that you don't have to be holding on to something that's going to get red hot. I like to wear my safety glasses when I'm torching because when I get my fixture soldered, I like to use the brush with the flux and just give it a quick wipe. It guarantees a good seal, and you may get something flashing in your face. So that takes care of that. Now, before we solder, we want to assemble. All right, so we want to get flux inside all of our fixtures. All right, so I put this together temporarily for now. I've got a screw in this elbow so that while I'm heating things up the flux goes kind of very liquid. A lot of times these fittings will fall off, and I don't want all the stuff falling in behind the tub. So this will just anchor it all and keep it all in place until I'm done. I've thrown a screw here to get my water line bent out of the way to keep it away from the heat. So now we're ready to do this. I know it looks a little archaic, but the fact is, we're not welding, we're soldering. So, you know, in a perfect world, it's nice to have a nice little pretty joint. But my goal is to get the solder not at the joint, is to get it inside at the fitting where we scratched it up. Now I got a scratched fitting and a scratched pipe and solder stuck in all those little grooves. That's what the flux does. It's like a magnet, and it pulls all the solder into the inside of the joint where the heat is. So you heat where you want the solder to go, and then when it's hot enough to melt it, it sucks it in. So although maybe a couple of points here, you might see what you think is a pinhole, I'll guarantee you that is watertight. And before we close up the wall, we will guarantee that it's watertight and do a pressure test, so we're going to be okay. Real quick note, don't worry if you get any of this solder on your acrylic. They do not bond together, and it will just wipe right off. Okay? Now, because we have turned off the water, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
And drained the lines.
Oh, I'm pretty sure.
I'm confident because I'm looking over at the bathroom tap and it's open and nothing's coming out.
Yeah.
Oh! All right. Yay! All right. So what we're going to do is we're just going to measure where we want to be here with the water line with our thumb. Just a little bit below. This again is eyeballing. And it might be easier if the blade is facing you. Sit it in the cradle. And this is you want to cut while you turn. That's how you cut it straight without collapsing the pipe. If you just cut it straight on, you're going to crush the pipe out of shape like that. And then putting on the fittings is a real pain in the butt. So always add a ring as you go, okay? And it's not going to stay where you want it to, but that's okay. We also need to add enough to go from here to here. I love the fact that this PEX is covered in numbers because it makes it really easy to measure. Okay. Again, we can put the rings on from ahead of time because we're going to have two joints. All right, now here's one of these situations. Everything is so tight together that we can't connect it. Now we can take that off and put it all in place. And then we'll throw another set screw on again, just to keep it all in, still while we're working. All right. Same with the other side. Twist and cut. The end is no good to us. Ring, fitting, two rings. Connect that, eyeball it, cut it. All right. There we go. Then we have to take our trusty crimpers. Now these are awesome. I think the last time we did one of these copper to PEX videos, we used a different locking system. Since then, Crimprite has come out with a crimping tool that is around $40 instead of $400. So it's finally making something that a homeowner can use. So you can use these solid rings to crimp now as a homeowner without a huge investment in your plumbing. Again, this means that you can do your own plumbing and the tools will be a lot cheaper than hiring a plumber. Now the goal here is to get the ring about 1/4 inch away from the fitting. All these fittings have these little barbed rings on it. So as long as you're making solid contact on one of these rings, you're going to be fine. But if you aim for the 1/4 inch rule, you're sure to be good as gold. You know, the scary thing is, plumbers today are using exactly the same system. That seems like an awful lot of money to play with Lego, to pay for a plumber. Now don't get me wrong, I love my plumber, and there's a time and a place to call in a professional, but when they make plumbing systems this simple, man, oh man, you better learn how to do this yourself or you're just throwing away your money. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our valves and we're going to put them back in the closed position, which is straight up and down. And we will put back our clips. And this is a pretty simple system to install. A little bit of a push. Push that down and then close them into the cradle. You probably see it easier on this side, eh? I just got to push it in, right? Drop this in there. Okay, we are good as go. The last thing to do here, of course, is we have to put in the shower system. Just thread this on. Again, go backwards until you feel it sit right. Nice and gentle in case you're cross-threaded. There we go. I know I mentioned this when I was taking this apart. When I'm putting it back on, you've got to use a pair of gloves here. You're supposed to do this hand tight. You can use a wrench just for a 1/4 turn, but hand tight is plenty, but wear gloves. All of these machine lines here, if your hand slips at all, it'll just slice you to shreds all around the inside of your palm. And I learned that one the hard way. All right. So now we're at a point where we've got our hot and cold water supplies all crimped on. The shut-off valves are back in. Our cartridge is back together. Our tub supply is all installed and capped. Now it's time to do the shower. And this is just a PEX to PEX. This is a drop ear connection. Again, put it on your line and tighten it down to the board. So I'm just going to eyeball it to the perfect cut. Add a little bit. That'll never hurt. Wonderful thing about PEX is you can always cut it a little bit long because you can bend it in place. And then just drop it down. Get your crimping tool. Set that to a 1/4 inch. Well, we now have plumbing. Now let's go turn the water supply on and double check everything, please. All right, so my son's downstairs turning on the water supply. What we do is we get on the phone together so that I can communicate with him if we have any leaks. And the first thing we're going to do is with the taps closed, we're going to check our solder joint here and our connections leading up to the valve. And we have no initial issues. Can you go full pressure, please? All right. And we're all pressurized? Okay, come on upstairs, buddy. Okay, so now here's a great little invention that I get at my plumbing supply store. I haven't seen these in the hardware store before, so if you're looking for one, you might want to go to a specialty supplier. But this is just a simple little cap. It has a gasket on it, an extended pipe so that it's easy to cut wallboard and identify things when you're doing your tile work. But it just threads into your shower head spout. Okay, it's exactly the same diameter as the fixture itself. And you just tighten that on nice and tight. Now you can test the pressure in the whole line because I'm capped up here with this and I'm capped down here with the solder. So now we're going to open up the cold water supply. Perfect. We're all finished our plumbing rough-in system now. The final trim goes on after the tile, and that's also where the cartridge gets installed in here. The reason they have the shutoff valves on this bracket is so that you're not mixing hot water through the cold water line. I know that there are some systems out there that come with a test cap that don't have the locks. And I've had situations like that where you install your shower, and before you know it, a couple days later, the toilet's running hot water while you're busy tiling and such. So these are designed to keep the water from flowing until you get the rest of the system put together. And that's about all you need to know. So if you want to see how this is all finished up, I'm sure we'll have some of the finishing trims in the project video later on. But thanks for watching. Thumbs up if you like it. And comment down below if you've got questions about this system or other systems. We're always here to help. We answer your questions every day. And we'll see you then.